Welcome to Be Your Own CFO. I'm Frances Schagen. You'll learn what you need to build your mission-driven business and make it financially healthy. Today we're talking about testing and modeling. So this series is about the roles of a CFO in a business. And we've already talked about systems, information. What else did we talk about? Decision making, planning, and now we're talking about modeling and testing. And we've already talked about modeling and testing and its role in decision making and planning. So one of the things that happened, most people looked at COVID and said, holy moly, that's like a once in a lifetime. Nobody saw it coming. This is, crazy. Well, the thing is, they did see it coming. And the governments of the world had a plan for a worldwide pandemic. There's this really cool woman, and I'll find her and put a link in the description below. She builds games that model weird situations, like a pandemic, and what would happen. How would people react? And one of the things she found out was people would still go to work if they had to go to work to feed their family. And that's why governments came out really quickly with some wage, or in Canada we had CERB, the US had something too as well that was just, here's some money, stay home, keep living. They knew that if that didn't happen, then, all hell would break loose, even worse. I remember thinking at the time, lightning fast reaction by our government and by governments of the world in dealing with that. And it was because they had already modeled this, they had already tested some ideas, and they were ready. Sometimes when you're watching spy movies, I love watching spy movies, something will happen and then they'll talk about, oh, well, then let's put on the Lilac Initiative. Like, they've already figured it out. They know if this happens, here's what we have to do. So those are the kinds of things that you can put together in your business. And it doesn't have to be as huge as a pandemic. It could be something as simple as you did the work and your customer didn't pay you. What are you going to do? Well, you know what? There are things you can do. And so testing and modeling allows you to look at different situations and scenarios and come up with some solutions for them. So what you do is you start off with your scenario or your question or the options that you're testing, right? And when we were talking about decision making, you come up with some options and now you test them. So in this case, your customer didn't pay you. What do you do? Then you look at your parameters. Okay, well, what can I do? What's my situation? Is the company still in business? Is the person I've been dealing with still there? What are the parameters? How do you move forward? So in a case like that, like, there are things that you can do to make sure you get paid on time. And it starts from before you do the work, you set the expectations really clearly. One thing you may find is you'll have customers who come back and say, oh, I didn't get your bill, or I didn't think the job was done, or I'm still waiting for this from you. So you learn to, when you think the job is done, you make it clear, you send a message to the customer and say, I think the job is done and I'm expecting to be paid X. Is there any reason any reason that won't happen? And then, there's things you do around if somebody hasn't paid, sending notices, starting to charge interest, all those things that help it happen. So that comes from testing, modeling. It also comes from experience. So you've got your scenario, you've looked at your parameters, you come up with some options or some ideas of what you're going to do. And then you run the scenario in your mind, and that helps you think through, okay, this or that. Now, this woman who's doing this, it's so cool. She sets up these games, and they say, and in the game, it's like, it's a worldwide pandemic. What are you going to do? When you get up in the morning, what time are you going to get up? Are people sleeping in? Are they, what are you going to eat for breakfast? Where are you going to get it? How are you going to spend your afternoon? If you're not going into the office, what does that mean about clothes? She just like asking all these questions. And that's part of the testing and modeling is, okay, the customer doesn't pay. Well, what's my first move going to be? Am I going to make a phone call? Okay, what will I say? And that would be part of that system then is, okay, here's what I'll say. So you write it out or you have it as a script ready to go. So now we're talking systems and testing and modeling together because it all comes together. So you run it, you come up with some options, you've got this is how you think it's going to play out. So then you assess your results. Okay, I'm going to call them and, see what happens. Assess what do you think would happen in that case. Usually if somebody's talking and you're saying, please pay me, they're much more likely to pay you than if you just send a note. That's just human nature. So that's part of the assessing the results. And then you come to some conclusions. So in the worldwide pandemic, people are going to keep working. They ran the scenario, people are going to keep working because they need to feed their kids, So if that happens, what does that mean for the pandemic? And then, they ran that, realized that the hospitals would be overrun. And that was really what a lot of that isolation had to do with. It was not overrunning the health system. In that case, what our conclusion is, we have to be able to get money into the hands of people as quickly as we can. So that's how testing and modeling works. We're going to be looking at some real examples and getting into it much deeper. There's so much more we can go into here. If there's anything you want me to cover sooner rather than later, drop it into the comments below. Please subscribe. If there's any other business owner that you think could use this information, please share it with them. There's going to be ways to follow up with me and resources, etc. in the description below. Keep making the impact you want, knowing that your business is financially healthy.